After the three goddesses created the world, ancient tribes settled on the wild terrains of the surface. Among these races were the Pirella, an aquatic squid-like creature that found its homeland in the waters surrounding and leading up to Lake Floria, an area that was governed by Farron the water dragon. The race lived in prosperity and peace until the entire world came under the imminent threat of Demise and his minions, which ultimately resulted in the goddess Hylia's hasty evacuation of the humans and the divine Triforce from the surface up to the sky. The Pirellas united their forces with the goddess and the other ancient surface tribes and took part in the decisive and victorious battle against Demise and his minions. After the war, peace returned to the surface, and the Pirellas continued to live under the Water Dragon's protection in Lake Floria. As a part of the Hero of the Sky's quest to enhance the Goddess Sword, he had to undertake the trial prepared by the gods in Farron Woods' Silent Realm to be granted a relic of Furor, the Water Dragon's scale. Link then headed for the lake in the province where he encountered Jelif, the leader of the Pirellas, who immediately led him to Farron the Water Dragon. After aiding the dragon and defeating the boss in the ancient cistern, Link later returned to a flooded Farron Woods, which shortly returned to its original state. In the ending of Skyward Sword, it is implied that the Skyloftians returned to the surface and over the course of the centuries established the Kingdom of Hyrule. Though the humans returned to the surface, it does not imply that they had any contact, since unlike the Gorons who lived in accessible sections of the surface, the Pirellas were well hidden in Farron Woods' underground water tunnels and unable to breathe outside of their natural element. In addition, their home consisted of a river that was only accessible for the ones wielding the dragon scale.
Over countless centuries, the fully aquatic Pirella gradually evolved into what became the long-living Zora race, that we first meet in the timeline in Ocarina of Time. As we all know, the Zora were created by the Zelda team in Kyoto. In fact, I'll be there for a month to visit Nintendo Kyoto and more. Only problem is that a lot of games and merchandise found are Japan exclusive, and this is where our sponsor, PlayAsia, comes in with a helping hand. Since 2002, they have provided the rest of the world with Japanese games, figurines and much more in merchandise. Most of all through their dedicated Asia English section. Here you will find English releases only available in Japan and Asia. Remember, there's no region lock on the Nintendo Switch, so you can play these right away. This includes releases of games and merchandise of franchises such as Super Robot Wars, Gundam, Final Fantasy, Chrono Cross, Persona, and Legend of Mana. Speaking of Legend but Zelda, PlayAsia has a large selection of Japan-exclusive Tears of the Kingdom accessories and merch, including Hori Split Pad Fit Tears of the Kingdom Edition, Tears of the Kingdom physical heart container, along with a number of soundtracks from other games like Link's Awakening Switch, Zelda 30th Anniversary Concert, even Twilight Princess HD. All orders over $99 get free international shipping, and what is even better, PlayAsia offers this and the same shipping rules anywhere in the world. So what are you waiting for? Since with my promo code you get 5% off on all orders over $25, minus Switch eShop codes and PSN cards. But other than that, everything at PlayAsia.com. Just add code Commonwealth in the checkout. Hyrule Historia and Zelda Encyclopedia indicate that the Zora Kingdom existed during the Civil War, possibly after Four Swords, as the Zora are nowhere to be found in Hyrule, here and earlier in the Minish Cap. The deity of the race, and the king's most trusted advisor, Lord Jabu Jabu, must have also been present at this point. It is unknown how the Hyrulean Civil War ignited, though it has been theorized that it initially was over troubles between the Zora and Gorons. Eventually, it became a conflict among nearly all of Hyrule's tribes. What matters is that by its decisive battles, both the Zora and the Gorons set their differences aside and had become allies with the King of Hyrule. As a result, during the unification of most of Hyrule, the Zora and the Gorons were allowed to maintain their autonomy.
Nonetheless, the unified kingdom had barely shaken itself from the war when a new, much greater threat appeared, and a young hero from the woods would embark on a quest to salvage Hyrule from the King of Thieves, Ganondorf. After defeating the parasite within the Great Deku Tree and the King of the Dodongos, the hero was granted the spiritual stones of forest and fire and headed along Zora's River up to Zora's domain to meet King Zora Daban the 16th for information regarding the last spiritual stone, the Zora Sapphire. Link soon after learned about Princess Ruto's whereabouts and that she had been swallowed by the Zora deity, Lord Jabu Jabu. Link headed back to deliver the message to the shocked King Zora, who referenced the unwanted visit from Ganondorf as a likely cause for the recent change of Lord Jabu Jabu's behavior, and ultimately asked Link to rescue the princess from the deity's belly. After offering a fish to the deity, Link made it inside Lord Jabu Jabu's belly and rescued the princess from Baronade's clutches. Impressed by Link's courage, Ruto felt a feeling of love for the young hero, which in the end allowed to let free of the Zora Sapphire, as she saw this as an engagement ring with Link.
7 years have passed since Link made his return to Zora's domain, only to find that the king and his subjects were trapped under a thick layer of ice. The body of water where Lord Jabu Jabu had last been seen was now nothing but icebergs. These floating slabs of ice created a path to the ice cavern, which contained the iron boots and the mystical blue flame. It was the blue flame that freed King Zora from his frozen imprisonment, and so, as an expression of gratitude, the king granted Link the Zora tunic. Link then rushed to Lake Hylia, where the water temple was located, so that he could break the icy curse cast upon Zora's domain, only to find out that the lake had been drained. Using the Zora tunic, hookshot, and iron boots, he entered the water temple with his new arsenal of equipment. Inside, he was reunited with Princess Rito, who had mixed feelings. Relief as the love of her life had finally returned, but also anger because she had assumed he left her without saying goodbye. Sadly for Rito, her business was with the water temple's scourge, which may or may not have killed her. Fortunately, Link defeated his reflection, Dark Link, to claim the long shot, and with it, he defeated Mipha. Rito awoke as the Sage of Water and informed Link that by destroying the curse of the temple, her domain would soon return to normal. Link continued his quest, eventually braving the perils that lurked within Ganon's castle. He broke the Seal of Water, which enabled Rito to play a key role in shutting down the main barrier and then banishing Ganondorf from within the Chamber of Sages. Whether it was after the Hero of Time's triumph or his failure, the timeline split into 3 branches. The Child Timeline branch, in which Link is victorious, was sent back to the past to create a new reality where Rito never had to enter the Water Temple, and thus peace was allowed to flourish within her domain.
After a long journey resulting in his forced arrival in Termina, the Hero of Time reached the Great Bay of Termina, where he encountered the lead guitarist of the Sea Zora band, Indiegogo, Mikau, who was about to die, failing in his mission to retrieve the Zora eggs for his love interest Lulu, who was in a deep state of depression. Seeing that Mikau's life could not be rescued, he played the Song of Healing, set up a memorial to the deceased Zora, and used the Zora mask to take his place in the Zora ranks, retrieve the eggs from the Gerudo pirates, and ultimately found a way into the Great Bay Temple to dispel the curse from the sea. Link practiced with the Indiegogo, and by rescuing the world from destruction, made it possible for the band to perform at the Carnival of Time. The Zora civilization of Termina differs from the other Zoras found in Hyrule, Labrina, and Holdorum. They are more technologically advanced with sophisticated building structures, high-quality entertainment, and even a writing system. Another thing we learned from the Zoras in Majora's Mask was how the race, just like fish in our own world, lay eggs in order to reproduce. In contrast to the Downfall timeline, the Zoras never left Hyrule in the Child timeline. Thus, they must have been involved at some point as tensions rose between the Gerudos, commanded by Ganondorf, and the Kingdom of Hyrule. Following Link's warning to Princess Zelda, and subsequently the King of Thieves' ambitions to ambush the castle and invade the Sacred Realm could not remain unanswered. In the end, a bloody conflict must have broken out, as obviously Ganondorf would not just hand himself in for a certain death by the hands of the Hyrulean royal family. With his tribe and minions, he therefore initiated an uprising against the Kingdom of Hyrule and her allies, marking the outbreak of the Gerudo-Hylian War. The Zoras were forced to once and for all give up their peaceful way of life and militarize on a massive scale. crafting weapons and armor for their soldiers to support the Hyrulean war effort against Ganondorf and his minions. The remnants of the Hyrulean army which managed to escape instructed and introduced the Zoras to advanced sword and weapon techniques, teaching them how to craft different sorts of items such as bombs, and then repurposing them for underwater utilization and combat. In return, the Zoras donated an entire province above Zora's Fountain to the Knights, who over the course of the years made the mountain into the main headquarters for their order, marking the beginning of the golden age of Hyrulean knighthood. The combined effort turned the tide of war to the Coalition's favor and was ultimately concluded with the capture of Ganondorf and his botched execution in the rushed effort to banish him to the Twilight Realm.
Tragically, the Dark Forces had still not altered their final word, as Ganon's malice granted the Twilight Zat the power to claim the throne from Midna and invade Hyrule. On his way to Hyrule Castle, Zant attacked Zora's domain where Queen Rutella ruled. Her opposition resulted in her death, but also the escape of her son, Prince Rallis. His mission was to seek aid from Princess Zelda, but on his way he was ambushed and wounded by monsters. Found by Ilya, he was brought to Telma's Bar, where he fell ill and lost his consciousness as Hyrule was covered in twilight. The hero of Twilight in his wolf form sought a solution by rushing to Lake Hylia, which had been drained as a result of Zora's domain freezing over, though this time in the child time. Trapped under the ice was the Zora Guard, which Wolf Link and Midna freed with the volcanic rock from Death Mountain. Bearing witness to this act of kindness was the deceased queen, who revealed herself as a spirit to the saviors of Zora's domain. Still, she had a request: save her son, and in return she would offer the protection of water. After clearing out the twilight from Lake Hylia and Zora's domain, Link set out to save the prince's life. As Link entered Telma's bar, he passed by the racist Hylian doctor of Castletown, who had refused to treat the Zora heir. As a result, Telma organized an escort, which with Link and Epona's help reached Kakariko. There its village shaman was ready to treat Rallis. In gratitude, Queen Rutella appeared once again to inform that Kakariko had for a long time been a safe haven for the Zora and was holding a key secret: the royal mausoleum of the tribe. She informed Link that her husband, that the deceased king that she was about to join in the afterlife, had created garments for the chosen hero, the Zora armor, which granted the abilities of the Zora. Link informed Rallis of his mother's sacrifice and that she wished for him to become a strong king of the tribe. At first, the mourning prince was reluctant, but as he spent time next to his parents' grave, his mother showed up in one of his dreams to tell him how the hero of Twilight was destined to save Zora's domain. The prince returned home to become the new king of Zora's domain, forever grateful to the hero of Twilight.
Four Swords Adventures is an odd installment in the series, as several of its elements does not fit with the general conceptions of the Zelda timeline. Even so, two types of River Zoras live in this era in Hyrule. In most provinces, they are hostile towards the Links. The Green Zoras, on the other hand, are friendly towards Link. One example is when Link stumbles upon a Zora who lives in a pond north of Kakariko village. The Zora is hungry, but apparently is not able to catch fish himself. The four Links feed the hungry Zora and in return are rewarded.
An explanation of this potential misplacement could be the Zora of the Downfall timeline. Here we begin with Princess Rito, who after the fall of the Hero of Time, along with the other sages, sealed Ganon with the complete Triforce.
Peace returned to the kingdom for a brief time, but Ganondorf's reign had exposed the entrance to the Sacred Realm, and with it, the location of the Triforce. Greedy individuals found its way to the corrupted realm, but were immediately upon entering it transformed into monsters and included into Ganon's growing army. After Ganon deemed his forces strong enough, he unleashed an attack from the Sacred Realm on Hyrule. This incident marked the outbreak of the Imprisoning War. The Zoras, being in the past a close ally to the Hylians, were likely fed up by the mistakes of the royal family, failing to keep evil sealed, and must have decided to not partake in the war. With this, the flourishing relation and alliance to the King of Hyrule and the Hylians met a swift end. Another reason could be increased pollution in Zora's domain, river, and other waters, resulting in a rather different reaction among the gentle Zoras. One group, including the king, became eventually seriously ill and had no other choice but to leave the war-filled Hyrule, while others were able to adapt as a result of evolution or mutation influenced by these new conditions. These individuals turned into River Zoras, who appointed a new monarch and dynasty. The remaining River Zoras turned their back to their former allies, the Hylians, and isolated themselves more and more as time went by, displaying a more vicious nature. This may be an explanation as to why they attack Link and see him as an intruder to their territory. However, there are some Zoras that are willing to cooperate, namely the monarch himself, King Zora. Link forced his way from Lake Hylia through Zora River up to Zora's waterfall and ultimately struck a business deal with King Zora, selling him the Zora's special flippers for 500 rupees. These allowed Link to swim through the deeper water sections, and as a bonus, the king allowed Link to use the whirlpool waterways.
The Sea Zora and the River Zora make an appearance in both of the Oracle games. However, the Sea Zora can only be found within Oracle of Ages, Labrina. In this game, it seems that both the vicious and potentially mutated River Zora and the friendly Sea Zora coexisted. Here, Link was confronted by the gravely ill King Zora, which was a result of Varen's poisoning of the sea, and only a magic potion would save His Majesty's life. Worse, King Zora had no successor, putting the entire monarchy on the line. In the future, this becomes reality as the king remains deceased until Link returns with a magic potion to the past. Saving the king's life, Link asked for permission to enter Lord Jabu Jabu. Since this isn't Ocarina of Time's Zora deity, but rather his descendant, the fish was still far too small to enter. This right here is our hint that Lord Jabu Jabu managed to escape from Zora's fountain in both the adult and the downfall timeline branches before Zora's domain was frozen over. Not so different from a certain Jabun, who we will eventually get to. Anyway, the hero of legend traveled to the present where he found King Zora alive and healthy, but still not willing to allow Link access. This time, it was the polluted water once again which had made the deity itself fall ill. Upon cleansing the entirety of the Zora Sea in the past, Link was finally able to enter Lord Jabu Jabu in the present.
A long time passed in Hyrule, but the Sea Zoras did not return, leaving the River Zoras to take over their position for good in the downfall timeline. The Zoras found in Lake Hylia, Zora's River, and the Zora Waterfall are all vicious and see the hero as an intruder. Nonetheless, when approaching Zora's domain, it turns out several Zoras do not bear harsh feelings toward Link. In the moment Link was about to enter Zora's domain, he was hit by a shady guy who had just stolen Queen Orin of the Zora's smooth gem and caused the queen to bloat up and spread panic and despair among her Zora underlings. Seeing this, Link went after the thief and found out that the stolen gem had been sold to the carpet salesman, forcing Link to purchase it prior to bringing it back to Zora's domain. In an instant, the queen was back to her normal form, and as a gesture of gratitude to Link, she bestowed him the Zora Flippers. After obtaining the Pendant of Wisdom from the House of Gales, Link encountered a Zora underling who told him how he was out swimming with Queen Orin and was suddenly left behind. Obviously, the queen had been trapped into a painting by Yuga and kidnapped. It soon turned out that Queen Orin was one of the 7 sages, and this might imply that Princess Rito from Ocarina of Time is a distant relative to the Sage of Water. Trapped deep inside the Swamp Palace, she was ultimately rescued by Link and took part in the ceremony where Link was granted the Triforce of Courage.
In Zelda 1, the River Zora were enemies and inhabited all 3 bodies of water surrounding Death Mountain. The same goes for Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. They also moved and looked different with their quadrupedal structure. But this is still nothing as we enter the adult timeline branch.
The hero of time defeated Ganon, was sent back to the past, leaving this timeline branch of Hyrule. But before we go any further, we need to return to the ending credits of Ocarina of Time. Here we can see King Zora with Mito mourning what they believe is the loss of their loved ones, Princess Rito and Saria, which might or might not be true. Slowly, the merits of the hero of time faded into legend, and when Ganondorf once again rose up, no new hero appeared, and selected individuals ascended up to a new service in the Great Sea. We know for certain that the Zoras at some point evolved into the Rito, as both of them share the Zora sapphire as their tribal symbol. The likely explanation for this connection is that Zora's domain was most likely sealed along with Hyrule. In other words, they simply had no other choice but to leave their homeland and accept the new conditions and find a new home.
Hyrule Encyclopedia explains that the Zora could not survive in the new Great Sea reality. The reason was that this torrential downpour of ethereal water from the three golden goddesses up in the heavens was not the water Hyrule used to have. The Zora had to adapt, and quickly. Fortunately to them, the gods had a plan, one that would cost the Gorons dearly. The dragon Valoo, who had been tasked to keep the Zora alive, and reached out to the tribe which had lost its home and way of life. He granted them a scale that would allow them to gradually evolve from an aquatic humanoid species into an aerial feathered one, first becoming more human to eventually generations later go beyond and become the bird-like Rito. But did this apply to all Zora? Apparently not, as we already know from both the Child and Downfall timelines that the Zora migrated and lived outside of Hyrule.
A fact that can be confirmed in Tears of the Kingdom. Sidon mentions on one of the renovated stone monuments that he is the direct descendant of Princess Rito, a reality that is only possible if Ganon was defeated by Link and Princess Zelda. This information points to the event in which the Zora went their separate ways in the adult timeline that came after Ganondorf's return to the surface and the creation of the Great Sea. Throughout the timeline, the Zora adapted to their changing surroundings and if necessary fought for their own future, either in combat or by migrating to neighboring bodies of water. Following this thought, the soon-to-be Rito most likely coerced the Gorons out of their home, Death Mountain. Ironically, with the aid of a dragon, who we all know the Gorons hate after Volvagia almost consumed them. To add insult to injury, Death Mountain became Dragon Roost Island as Valoo settled down as the permanent deity of the upcoming bird-like tribe. This covers the fate of the Zora who eventually evolved into the Rito. Hyrule Encyclopedia points to Great Fish Isle previously being Lake Hylia, home of Jabu Jabu's descendant Jabun, which was once inhabited by Hyruleans, not specifically Hylians. I suspect that this in truth points to Zora, the former residents and caretakers of Lake Hylia. A claim supported by the presence of Zora coffee being served in Windfall Island's cafe, as I have previously pointed out in my own Zora Rito theory video. Not counting any Zora who may have already departed Hyrule at this point, there were likely at least 2 Zora species living on the Isles of the Great Sea. Still, it appears that the Zora of Great Fish Isle eventually left, and so the Rito took over the care of Jabun.
Many years then passed until a new Link arrived at Dragon Roost Island and was escorted by Quill to the Rito headquarters in what most likely used to be Goron City and was introduced to the Rito chieftain. It seems despite the end of the traditional monarchy in form of kings, the Rito inherited the heraldic tradition of reign from their Zora ancestors. The chieftain promised learning about Link's quest, promised to aid him, but first needed to resolve a crisis surrounding their guardian spirit and deity Valoo, Change of Mood, which had turned him violent and forced the Ritos to halt all attempts to send young ones up to acquire the scale needed for the Ritos to grow wings.
Upon solving the Rito crisis by destroying Goma and saving Medli from captivity, he convinced the chieftain's son Komali to show some bravery. With Link's return from Dragon Roost Cavern, Komali apologized and handed Link Din's Pearl, the gem gifted to him from his grandmother, stating, quote, "Giving you what I value the most will give me the courage to stand up to anything." Despite having a new deity, the Rito did not forget about their other deity, Jabun, the descendant of Lord Jabu Jabu. This became clear after Link was reunited with Quill at Great Fish Island. He informed that the water spirit managed to escape before Ganondorf's attack, thanks to the warning of Rito, who had directed him to a cave next to Link's home, Outset Island. There Link was bestowed the Pearl of Nehru after Jabun had mistaken him for the hero of time. Upon pulling the Master Sword, the Rito came to the hero's rescue after his failed standoff against Ganondorf at the Forsaken Fortress. Prince Kumali and Quill swooped in at the last moment, leaving Ganondorf to face Walu's fire. The Rito tribe continued to aid Link as the spirit and ancestor of Medli, Rito, reached out to Link at the entrance of the Earth Temple. She tasked Link to awaken the next Sage of Earth and bring her to the temple to restore one half of the Master Sword's power, a blessing which was missing after Ganondorf had murdered the Zora Sage to prevent the next hero after time to strike him down. Medli, with the Zora Sapphire on her dress, and the same instrument, connected with Rito through the Earth God's lyric and set off with Link to the Earth Temple. There they battled their way to restore one of the two missing halves of the Master Sword's full power. Rito and Medli played, and Medli had to remain in the temple to keep the sword in shape and ready for the Hero of Wind's destined battle versus Ganondorf. Upon his turn into stone and Hyrule's flooding, Medli and Kumali were reunited as the Hero of Winds set off in the search of new lands. A trail that the Zora branch might already have followed and even dropped their royal regalia of silver, including Queen Ruto's crown. I guess survival and locating new land was the priority for the Zora. Still, they didn't end up in New Hyrule, but a different land. Only with time and a potential convergence of all three branches did the Silver Zora return to Pure Water Hyrule, where the Rito had stayed thanks to their evolution and team up with Walu. To mend their ties with the Gorons, they likely handed back Eldin and departed for Hebron, where they built Rito Village.
As two completely different, albeit still cordial races, the Zora and Rito were only truly united through their relations with the Zonai, beings descended from the heavens, and the Hylians who may have forgotten their former kingdoms. Interestingly, during this time prior to Ganondorf's reincarnation, both the Rito and the Zora were the only surface tribes to set up shop in the sky alongside the Zonai, specifically through the Stormwind Arc and the Water Temple, sites powered with Zonai levitation technology. The Zonai's presence in Hyrule eventually faded into obscurity after the Demon King was sealed by Rauru, a process in which a Zora and Princess was instrumental as the new Sage of Water. That, along with guarding the secret Stone of Water as tasked by Princess Zelda until Link and the successor of the stone would arrive at the Water Temple. It was prior or perhaps even after the imprisoning war that the Zora built a new domain using all of the artisan skills that the now greatly diverse kingdom had gained abroad. A true masterpiece and absolute wonder to behold. Sadly, due to strange weather patterns every 10 years, the river leading out of the newly built domain occasionally flooded the central lands of the kingdom of the Hylians. As a result, the two monarchies of Hyrule agreed that a reservoir above Zora's domain had to be built. In addition to the reservoir, the Zora constructed a massive aqueduct system underneath. This structure had a dual purpose, as it also opened up a path to the Water Temple in the sky. As time went on, both creations were eventually forgotten. The ancient Sheikah in Breath of the Wild blocked the entrance to the Zoran waterworks with their newly built divine beast, which might have actually been given its name by the Zora sages, Ruto, but slightly altered into Ruda, unless Ruto was the name of the sage from the distant past in Tears of the Kingdom. Either way, divine beast Vah-Ruta and its Zoran pilot contributed greatly to the victory of the Hylian princess and the ancient hero over Calamity Ganon, alongside the Rito, Gorons, and Gerudo. 10,000 years later, the friendship across the races of Hyrule persisted until the reign of King Dorephan. He had two children. His firstborn was Mipha, with the power to heal any wounds, and a son named Sidon. Over time, Mipha slowly developed feelings for the visiting Hylian swordsman, Link. At the young age of 12, he had already pulled the Master Sword, a prodigal knight of which he had no equal in combat. Once again, Link made his return to Zora's domain, but this time as the future champion and next defender of Hyrule against Calamity Ganon, along with the Blade of Evil's Bane as noted in Mipha's diary. By the time that Princess Zelda came to ask Mipha to be the next pilot of the excavated divine beast, Mipha couldn't express the feelings that she harbored for Link. She, much like Rivali of the Rito with his mastery over the wind, accepted the nomination in the presence of Sidon, despite the concerns of her father, King Dorephan. His worries had merit, as Princess Mipha was not able to repel Calamity Ganon's counterattack. Trapped within the divine beast, Waterblight Ganon defeated Mipha in a duel to the death. The Zoran princess, along with Rivali, were both slain on that tragic day.
Mipha's death left all of Zora's domain devastated, and to honor her memory, they sent the light-scale trident adrift down the Zora River. But then, Mipha's voice came from the trident saying, "The light-scale trident and I are one. Abandon your grief and know joy once again. Do not cry, just remember." So every year on the day of the calamity, the Zora hold the Champion Festival to honor her sacrifice. Link finally awakened from the Shrine of Resurrection, and his journey to defeat Calamity Ganon and save Hyrule lead him to Zora's domain, where a corrupted divine beast, Vah Ruta, cursed the land with endless rainfall. It was there that he also met Prince Sidon, Mipha's brother and skilled warrior, quite possibly the strongest one next to his father, King Dorephan. It was with the help of these two individuals that Link was able to mount the divine beast, kill Waterblight Ganon, and clear the beast of its corruption. It was then that he encountered Mipha's spirit, who then gifted him with her power, Mipha's grace, to heal himself once he fell in battle. Piloted by Mipha's spirit, Vah Ruta perched itself on a mountain viewing Hyrule Castle,
joining Revali, who had granted his scale to Link and then greatly helped in weakening and bringing down Calamity Ganon. Two spirits which had been reached with the help from multiple Rito like Teba and Kass, and Zora like Sidon and Dorephan, all who aided Link in Princess Zelda's return. With peace secured and the future Queen of Hyrule's condolences delivered, the king could finally focus on securing the future of his kingdom. He sent words to a domain outside of Hyrule to find a fitting partner to his son, as Link and Sidon could only be friends, bringing in the beautiful Yona for Sidon. To celebrate the victory over the Blights and the Calamity, a new monument of Sidon and Link was carved, while Mipha's was moved to a new, more fitting high ground complex. Meanwhile, in Rito village, Teba accepted to become the village elder, leaving combat and guidance to his talented son, Tulin. Rightfully so, as the source of the calamity, Ganondorf came with a vengeance, and with it, new plagues to both Zora's domain and Rito village. Fortunately, Link was also back, and together with Sidon and Tulin, made it up to the forgotten sky past of the Rito and the Zora, but in the latter case, also their underground facility, reclaiming them and saving their homes from sludge and cold, and turning both into sages with secret stones. New powers that they immediately granted to Link. Even so, the heel Dorephan had one more card up his sleeve: abdication, an appointment of Sidon to succeed him as king. With his new queen, Yona, by his side, King Sidon accepted the crown and made his goal clear to his people: be an active monarch, and he meant it. Showing up with Tulin and the other surface sages in Link's hour of need in the Sanctum, and then the depths with them, plus Minoru. In the end, both Sidon and Tulin fought against the Demon King, until being injured and forced to witness the one-on-one duel. Luckily, with Link's victory in all three layers, and the last recall of Princess Zelda, the newly crowned Zora King and Sage, along with the Rito Sage, returned to the Sky Islands. But this time, the Great One, all to witness the last Zonai spirit. Minoru bid her farewell and prepare to serve Queen Zelda. And that is the end of the Zora and Rito time, a kingdom and a village about to enter a new golden age, east and west of the under reconstruction Hyrule Kingdom. But what about the depths and mines below Zora's domain and Rito village? Well, that is a subject we go over in Gossip Guy's part of this collaboration. Thank you for watching, and be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to both of our channels, and then head over for even more Sidon in the card in front of you.